What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Good Wolf Project. I'm your host, Jerry Scarlato. Today is a special episode because being my 40th birthday, we're going to be talking about 10 lessons that I've learned living 40 years on this earth. Now, by the time you get this, it will be my 40th birthday. Today's Friday, so technically, as I'm speaking, it's not my birthday, but you will be watching this on Sunday, and I will be turning 40 on Sunday, August 4th. Nonetheless, 10 lessons that I've learned in the 40 years that I've been on this earth. Now, this is not an extensive list. This isn't everything that I've learned. Maybe it's not even the most obvious things. I'm sure I'm looking over some very obvious lessons that maybe you've learned in your lifetime. So a lot of what we'll talk about today is actually pretty contradictory to what you hear in society. And it's things that you can take and you can put into action and you can apply to your own life. Some of them are a little more observational, things that you maybe need a little more time to think about and to assimilate and to look and see if it's the way that you think that it actually is. So take what you can out of this, put it into practice, and figure out how it can then impact your life. Hopefully, I'm sure that you can take some of these lessons and speed up your progress. Maybe skip a couple steps. Maybe you don't have to go through and learn these lessons on your own, and you can skip forward. That's kind of the point of listening to things like this, so that you can speed up your progress. So I'll challenge you to take not take what I say as fact, because you should not do that with anybody. You should listen and then observe and see if you think that it is the case. If it seems to support what you already know, then great, you can take it and you can run with it. If it is completely contradictory to what you've heard or what you believe, which I think a lot of it will be, then I would challenge you to challenge your current belief and see if what I'm going to suggest or the lesson that I'm going to throw out actually supports the way reality is. And that's what we're trying to get to, is figuring out how reality is. And these 10 things that I'm going to talk about today is what I have seen be more reasonable and more reality based than what society tells us is the case. The number one thing, which is where we'll start, which is contradictory to what society tells us, is that you are the most important person to impress. Society tells us that we should spend a lot of time worrying about impressing other people, worrying about making other people happy. And if we spend too much time making ourselves happy, then we're a selfish asshole and we're just not useful to society. But when it comes down to it, without your own happiness, without your own fulfillment, you cannot give yourself to the people around you. So if you're not spending time figuring out and making decisions based on what makes you happy, based on what you believe to be right, and what, quote, impresses you, then you're not going to get the most out of life. And there's a good chance that you just won't end up being happy with things. We make decisions based on other people's opinions. We make decisions based on our family, based on our spouses, based on our friends, which makes a level of sense because they're close to us, especially a spouse. If you have a romantic relationship with somebody, makes sense. You should definitely take their thoughts into account, especially if it's going to impact them. But many of us make decisions based on what other people will think. And there's a good chance you'll never see any of those people. They don't have to live with the consequences of your decisions. They don't have to literally internalize everything that you're going to go through. And if you are making a decision that you don't believe is right, how is that going to impact your subconscious? What's the second and third order consequence of trying to fulfill somebody else's need and make somebody else happy to yourself? And then how does that play out over the long run? And that's what I mean by you being the number one person to impress. It's not that you become this selfish asshole, or we're going to get into what it means to be selfish here in a little bit, but what most people deem as a selfish asshole, where you clearly are just all about you. Like it is 100% about you, and it is very clear that that is the case. That's not what I'm saying. It's not what I'm suggesting, because there are more people that live a selfish life that you would look at and you wouldn't deem them as a selfish person, but they're making selfish decisions, but they're making them through because it will fulfill them, but it also fulfills others at the same time. And that's what people miss, is the connection from fulfilling yourself to also then fulfilling others. So how do you make sure that you're making decisions that brings out your best self, that builds your belief in yourself, your confidence, your competence, your self-respect, and all of that, while also being able to fulfill and make other people happy and build them up along the way? Okay, so that's number one. Number two, then, is you are also the number one person that will get in your own way along any part of your journey, along any part of what you're going to try and accomplish in life, in any area of life. You are the number one person, the number one obstacle that will stand in your way. Now, that's a hard one to swallow because many people look at outside circumstances and they go, well, what about the economy? Well, what about this disaster that happened? Well, what about my spouse that left me? Well, what about my business that I had to close because of XYZ happening? Which is all true. All of those things that you didn't see happen, that you literally could not, like you can't control the economy. Of course you can't. You can't control whether a tornado rips through your neighborhood. Well, you can to an extent, which we'll talk about. You can't control, there's many things you cannot literally control. So then how are you the number one obstacle that's going to stand in your way? Well, it's what you do with what happens. And many people don't do a good job with the unforeseen circumstances that pop up, the unforeseen things that happen. The economy, for instance. It's very easy to lay blame on the economy and say, hey, the economy is the reason that I had to close my business. I closed my business last year. It would have been very easy for me to go, it's because of the economy. And everybody would have gone, yeah, you're right. And they would have patted me on the back and said, hey, it's okay. But that's not the case. It's just not true. I just decided that it was time to move on and close it. I could have pushed through. I could have kept going. I know that I could have. There's no doubt in my mind. So the question is, what do you do with the circumstances that pop up? And many people don't have the belief in themselves to be able to overcome the issue. So they figure out a way to blame something else. That's really what it comes down to. They just don't believe in their capabilities to actually overcome it. So they figure out how to blame something else so they don't have to feel bad about themselves. That's what it really comes down to. So if you can recognize that you're going to be the number one obstacle in everything that you do, the relationships that you have, the ability to grow wealth or not, the ability to have your health under control, you're the number one obstacle. If you can take that and understand that it doesn't mean that you control everything that happens to you, because you don't, but you do control all the responses to it, then you can go, okay, when something happens, how do I then change my response? How do I do something different so that I can overcome this thing instead of let it stop me? If I'm the thing that's going to decide if I get through it or not if it happens, but if I get through it, then how do I change my response so that I can get a different outcome? Okay, that's the way to think about that idea. I'm going to mark these off as I go because otherwise I will repeat myself, which I tend to do anyway, so I don't need to do that again. All right, so you are the number one obstacle that will stand in your way in all things all the time. If you can ingrain that, then life will be it'll actually be a lot easier. It won't be easy, but it'll be a lot easier because then you don't let things stop you. Okay. Number 3, the secret to success. The secret. Actually, let's go to this one first. Most things in life are simpler than what we make them. I would argue that all things in life are simpler than what we make them. Health and fitness is a perfect example of this. when it comes to nutrition, because of all of the diets available, all of the training programs available, we want to think that one of them is perfect. And if we do this differently, and what about the keto diet? And what about the carnivore diet? And what about the blah, blah, blah diet? Well, what if I try P90X? Well, what about bodyweight training? What about HIIT training? Well, what about yoga? Should I do that? And what should I do this? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not that complicated. Just do something. Choose it and then do it. That's what it comes down to. What investing is the same way. People make investing very complicated. And the reason that this happens is because I think it's called complexity bias or something like that. At any rate, human beings will literally make a more complicated decision or choose a more complicated outcome than a simpler outcome, even though they will both get you in the same with the same result. They will both end up in the same result. If you can understand that human beings have a tendency to choose a more complicated outcome versus a simpler outcome, even though both of them will get you the same outcome. They will choose a more complicated path versus a simpler path, even though they get you the same outcome. If you can understand that, then you can maybe start to shift your decisions. You can start to change and put them into something that is simpler. Stop making things so complicated. Stop pretending like investing is this big, huge, complicated idea. No, you can start with something as simple as just putting your money into some index funds. Perfect. That's a great way to start. What about real estate? People tell me I should do real estate, but it feels very complicated. Well, it's only complicated because you don't know anything about it. It feels complicated because you don't know anything. But if you recognize it can be very simple if you just take the time to understand about 5 basic concepts, then you can do something about it. So figure out how you can simplify things. Remember, simplify things to the point that they're as simple as they can be without being too simple. Put that in the back of your head anytime you're making especially an important decision that's going to impact your life. And there's a good chance that your journey will be easier, because it's going to be hard either way. It's going to be challenging either way. You're going to have to overcome obstacles. You're going to have to change your plans. So if you can not make things more complicated, you might as well not make them more complicated, right? Simple, 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 simple. Understand that all human beings have a tendency to choose the complicated path. Don't be that person. Be the person that chooses the simple path, because they will both lead you to the same outcome. Okay, that leads us then to the secret to success is follow through. Speaking of simple, the secret to success is follow through. So yesterday I interviewed Julian Hayes II, which will be coming out soon after this, after you watch this episode. And one of the things that we talked about, he initially said, this is what most people think. He initially said that, many people choose the path of a career or working for somebody else because they feel like that's the safe path. If I go down that path, it feels pretty certain, feels pretty safe. Whereas if I go and open a business, then it's more risky. I'm taking a higher level of risk, and it just doesn't feel as certain to me. And I said, I pushed back on him a little bit. I said, of course, there's a level of truth to that. There's a level of truth to it. But at the same time, entrepreneurship, owning a business, there is a level of certainty there that people don't recognize. And that level of certainty comes when you understand a few basic things that helps grow and sustain a business. If you can understand maybe 5 basic principles of growing and then sustaining that growth and sustaining that business over time, 5 basic principles, there's a level of certainty that you have. And if that one doesn't work out, you can do it with another one. So I say that because that level of certainty comes with follow through. When it comes to growing a business, when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to health and fitness, when it comes to investing, when it comes to all things, success is dictated by follow through. It's your ability to do the thing, your ability to keep going. That is the secret to success. It is showing up and it's doing probably the same thing over and over again for a long period of time. Making small changes here and there, sometimes making big changes, but mostly small changes from time to time. And that's what leads to success. That's it. Simple. Not easy, because human beings want to make things more complex than they are, but it is simple. Follow through. Follow through also, going back to the first topic we talked about, you're the number one person to impress. Follow through also builds your belief in yourself. The reason that most people start something, stop something, and then subsequently after that have a higher likelihood of starting and stopping something is because they don't believe that they can do it, because they have already started and stopped once. So it increases the likelihood that they start and stop again. And then that then increases the likelihood that they start and stop again, and so on and so forth down the road. So because they haven't followed through with their word, they don't believe that they will follow through with their word next time, which then reinforces it when you don't. And that continues to happen. You continue to just stack those losses on top of each other. It's just a loop. It is the habit of quitting on yourself. So if you can turn that around and just recognize that all of success is just a matter of following through, you build your belief in yourself. As you build your belief in yourself, you're more likely to follow through. The more you follow through, the more success you have. The more success you have, the more you believe in yourself, and the cycle continues. Instead of you cycling downward, you cycle upward. It's the same system, structure, but it's done in reverse. Most people cycle downward. They fail. They try again. They fail. They try again. They fail. But they don't fail because something so catastrophic happened that they literally can't do anything anymore. They fail because they stop. Over here, though, you follow through, you succeed a little bit, you follow through more, you succeed a little bit, you follow through more, you succeed a little bit, and you keep spiraling up. You see? Same idea, just one way you're going down, one way you're going up. Both of them require the same amount of time. Both of them require about the same amount of effort. Just one of them you're sinking, one of them you're raising. Okay? Follow through is all that it takes to achieve success. Not all, but it is the secret. You just got to keep going. Just got to keep showing up. If you do that over a period of time, then being a business owner, entrepreneurship has a level of certainty to it. If you are willing to just keep showing up, then I would argue entrepreneurship has a pretty damn equal level of certainty to having a career, just with more reward. So that's number, what was that, number 4? Yes, that was number 4, which leads us to number 5. Is this where we want to go? Yes. Number 5, the 5th lesson that I've learned in 40 years is there will never be a right time. There will never be a quote unquote right time. So many people don't make progress on their goals because they say that I will start when the timing is right. I will start when the kids don't have soccer practice. I will start when work slows down. I will start when I have motivation. I will start when I have the money, whatever the resources that you think that you're lacking, that's when you're going to start. But if you think about and take time to reflect on all of the life that you've lived up until this point, you will recognize that there is never a right time. Yes, there may be a time frame where things are maybe a little slower, or maybe you made a little more money, or maybe you just don't have as much going on and work is calm, and that feels like the right time. But when you tell yourself that I'll start when the right time comes, Subconsciously, that also means that you will quit when the right time has gone, which means that short time frame where things feel slow and calm and you can go and start exercising or start the business or start doing whatever you say you're going to do, when that time goes, and it will go, and it'll usually be pretty quick, then that means that you'll stop because things will have changed. Suddenly your schedule will have gotten busy. Work will have all of a sudden picked up. Kids will all of a sudden have had soccer practice. The world will have turned upside down, whatever has happened. So there will never be a right time because life will always ebb and flow. Life will always punch you in the face. Life will always give you something that you just have no clue was going to show up. So the only time to start something then is now. It's the only time to start. And I would argue that the best time to start something is when you're in the fire, when things are just chaotic. Because when things do slow down, then you'll go, well, damn, this is easy. I could do this all day long. Instead, people do the opposite. They start when things are easy, and when things get hard, then they quit because they feel like it should be easy. If you take a second to reflect and think, you will recognize that that is the case. If you want to make things sustainable in your life, just start. If you say you want to do something, start, do it, and then follow through. And then there's a good chance that you will succeed. You see how all these things are like linking together? I love when that happens. It's almost like it was on purpose. There is no right time. All you can do is start. All right, that was 5. Let's go through and review those 5 again real quick. Number 1 is you're the most important person to impress. Don't worry about making everybody else happy, especially strangers. Don't worry about making strangers happy. They do not have to live with your decisions. You have to live with your decisions. Number 2, you're the number 1 obstacle in all things, always, all the time. If you can ingrain that and you can believe that and you can recognize that, then you will have a greater chance of actually overcoming obstacles when they show up. Number 3, all things are simpler than what we make them. Human beings have a tendency to lean toward complexity. So if you can recognize that also and choose a simpler path, good chance you'll get your outcome faster. Number 4, sorry, got lost. The secret to success is follow through. There is no deep-rooted secret. Yes, of course, there are different actions that you can take along the way that may be more efficient and more effective, but that's the point of follow through. The point of follow through is to learn those things along the way. It's to learn what's effective. It's to learn what's efficient. Start to meld them together so that you can get to where you're trying to go. But the overarching secret is just to keep going. Number 5, there is no right time. There is only today. And if you choose today, and especially if things are already chaotic, once things actually slow down, there's a good chance that things will feel a lot easier. So go ahead and get started. Cool. I'm going to go ahead and take a quick drink while you ruminate on those 5 lessons. I know they're very in-depth. They're really very philosophical. So I know you're going to need a second to think about them. In my 40 years, I've become more philosophical. Maybe I just say things out loud and hopefully they make sense. All right, let's get started on the second half of our list. Number 6, health is the foundation for life. Without your health, you cannot then fully live a life. You cannot live a life that will bring you everything that you want, whatever that means to you. It means different things to different people. But without your health, you cannot have whatever it is that you want effectively. Because once your health starts to deteriorate, you won't be able to put as much energy into those things that you want. If you want a good relationship, if your health starts to deteriorate, suddenly you have to start putting your effort into different things. Suddenly you don't have as much energy. Suddenly you can't put as much energy into that relationship. If you want to continue to build your business, your health starts to go to the wayside, your business will deteriorate. It will impact your business. There's no question about it. I have worked with thousands of people, many of which have been entrepreneurs, many of which have been managers and executives, and it shows through and through. And all of them have said, once I started to optimize and improve my health, I was able to put more into my life. I was able to put more into my business. I was able to put more into my relationship. I had more energy. And therefore, even though I believed that spending time on my health was going to take time away from everything else, what I found was spending time on my health helped me actually get more shit done. I actually became better at doing things. So your health is the foundation for the rest of your life. Without your health, you cannot effectively live the life that you want to live. Yes, maybe you're doing a good job right now. Maybe you're like, hey, I'm okay. I got a little extra pudge. Everything's fine, but I feel like my life's good. I'm not telling you that you can't have a life that you enjoy, but that's the wrong question. The question is, how much better could your life be if your health were better? How much better could it be if your health were optimized? That's the question. And that's the question that so many people overlook. Well, I'm doing pretty good right now. That's great. Cool. How much better could it be if you spent some time getting that belly off, building your energy? Because when you do energetic things, you actually build energy, and then being able to put that into the rest of your life. Health is the foundation of all of that. Very good. That leads us to number 7. You will only get what you want out of life when you decide to take responsibility to make it happen. You'll only get what you want out of life when you take full responsibility to make it happen. One of the trendy things in society right now is victimhood. It is saying that all of these things, it's because of all of these things, or all of these people, or all of these ideas, which are generally blamed on people like me, white men. It's because of them that I can't do what I want to do. It's because of them that I'm not capable of achieving things that I want in life. And that is a very trendy thing right now. It is just trendy. Now, that started a long time ago. Now, it wasn't victimhood per se, but for years, since the beginning of human time, people have blamed other things for their downfall. People have pointed and blamed, and it's this person's fault or that person's fault or this instance or that circumstance or that's happened since human beings could point their fingers. So what you see is, if you look at people who play victims or blame or point at other things that for dictating their life, on average, those people are less happy. On average, those people are less fulfilled. On average, those people achieve less in life. On average, those people have less fulfillment in their life. So the question is, if that's the case, why do they do it? Well, because it feels easier to do. It is much easier to point at something. It's much easier to blame something so that eventually maybe someone will come save you and do it for you. If you point and blame and play victim long enough, maybe eventually somebody will show up and they will help you and they will get you to where you want to go. And they will support you so that you can then achieve this thing that you want in life, which also will never happen because, as we'll see in a little bit, all human beings are selfish. And human nature is to do what's best for the human that's making the decision and not what's best for you. So if you're relying or waiting on somebody else to make a choice for you, to support you, to bring you to that happiness that you want in life, that's not going to happen. because they will make the decision that is right for them, not what's right for you. Rightfully so. Rightfully so. So until you decide that, okay, I am the one that has to do this. I am the one that has to take my health and do something with it. I cannot rely on the healthcare system because they don't actually care to make me healthy. They only care to keep me alive, which is two very different things. I cannot rely on Big Pharma to give me more medications. I cannot rely on the government to subsidize me. I cannot rely on all of these things are out there and available, and you could very easily just sit back in your chair and, live an okay life, just kind of lounging around, letting people support you. But I'm assuming that's not what you want if you're listening to this podcast. So until you decide, hey, my health is mine, it is up to me to decide what my health looks like. And unless I take control and I take responsibility for it, it will continue to deteriorate and continue to look the same. My career, my work, my business, that is mine. Yes, things will happen, as we've seen. Things will happen that are not my choice, that have nothing to do with me, that I cannot control. What I can control is what I do with what happens. And until I take responsibility for that, I won't be able to push through. I will not be able to grow the business and expand the business the way that I want to. And that goes with every aspect of life. The irony is, responsibility is the ultimate freedom. When you take responsibility for everything in life, suddenly you don't rely on anybody. When you don't rely on anybody, you are free. Since apparently that's what this country is about, well, the United States, not that everybody who's listening to this is in the United States, but I'm assuming every human being that is listening to this wants freedom. When you take responsibility for your actions, when you take responsibility for your life, no matter what circumstances are thrown at you, that is freedom. You are not reliant or dependent on anything else to support you. So until you decide to take full responsibility and build the life that you want, don't be surprised that the same things keep happening. Simply said, much more challenging to do. Of course, simply said, but much more challenging to do. Taking responsibility for your life is hard. It's very scary. When you finally say, hey, it is on me for all of this, when you finally say that, it's scary, for sure. But at the same time, it is freeing and energizing. So I would challenge you to take that step, to free yourself and energize yourself, to build someone that is responsible for their life and therefore brings more to life because of it. All right, that was some number that I lost count of. Number 7? Yeah, that sounds right. That was a big one. Again, another one that is contrary to what much of society tells us. So much of society is simply about letting other people support you. And the government will tell you that you should let them support you as well. Let them do the work for you. But it's a very slippery slope from, saying yes once to saying yes twice to suddenly someone else literally has control over your life. The question is, do you want that? Okay, next, number 8. Make decisions quickly, then cut off all other options. So there are two general types of people when it comes to decision making. There are maximizers and there are satisficers. Maximizers are people who want to maximize the decision. They want to research everything. They want 35 options. They want to look again. Well, they want to ask all of the questions that they need answered. They want to dig down into every fine detail, and they want to take as long as possible to do it. Satisficers, they go, okay, I have these 3 criteria that this thing needs to meet. Here, cool, here's 3 options. Great, I'll pick that one. Because they know that if they're satisfied if the thing meets these 3 criteria, maybe 5. And if they meet those handful of criteria, I got a couple options there, they'll go, okay, well, all of these will probably do. Well, cool, let me pick this one. Satisficers are much more happy with their decisions than maximizers are, because maximizers go back and they go, oh, well, what if I would have picked this thing? What if I picked that car instead of this car? I wonder how much happier I would have been if I would have picked this car or that car over there. I would have been happier. Or that pair of shoes or that shirt. How much happier I would have been if I would have picked those things instead. That's what maximizers do. They think about, once they have chosen something, they then think about how much better life could have potentially been had they chose something else. Satisficers, they're like, hey, this is what I chose. I'm sticking with it. And they're infinitely happier with their choice and generally get the same outcome. Actually, usually get a better outcome when they make their choice. So the lesson to be learned from maximizers and satisficers is that if you have narrowed your decision down to a handful of options, a handful or less of options, then all of those options will get you to the outcome that you want. If you have 3 cars you're trying to choose from and you're ruminating real hard, all of them will be a good car. All of them. Unless by chance you buy a lemon, which is possible, all of them will be a good car. You'll be happy with all of them. They're all the same at that point. If you're trying to make a choice in your business, I have these 3 options for a marketing plan, and I just can't really decide. All of them will get you down the road. The only difference is how dedicated you are to the decision. That's the difference. Decision, literally the root of decision, the etymology of decision, it means to cut off. So when you decide on a path, cut off all other options and choose that path and go. Do it. But decide quickly and then choose. Because when you take your time deciding, you become the kind of person that takes your time deciding, which then means you become the kind of person that procrastinates, which means you're not making progress, which means you're not moving forward. And then once you decide, what you will do is then ruminate about how those other options could have potentially been different, could have potentially been better. So decide and then cut those options off and move forward. Now, that doesn't mean you move forward just blindly, not paying any damn bit of attention to anything, never, reevaluating. It doesn't mean that at all. Especially in business, you got to reevaluate at some point, but you don't reevaluate tomorrow or next week. You reevaluate maybe next month, but probably next quarter. Depending on the choice that you've made, maybe it's next year. Who knows? So yes, of course, you reevaluate. Yes, you review, you look and see if it makes sense, if you need to make any changes, but you don't immediately change. You can't do it. But another overarching theme of successful versus unsuccessful people is the ability to just stick with the decision. Follow through. The secret. It is the follow through of the choice. I have made a choice on this path, and if I just keep going, there's a good chance that I'll get where I want to go. If not, I will evaluate and I'll make another choice. I'll change. Okay, so be a satisficer. Don't be a maximizer. Don't be that person that has to have 35 options and then is unhappy with your decision because you feel like just, if my car were able to do this one extra function, then I would be happy. It's not the case. You still wouldn't be happy with that thing either. So choose what criteria your options need to meet Only have about 3 options, and then pick one and then go. And your life will be much simpler. You see it? Human beings have a tendency to make things complex. Make it simple. You will be happier. Okay, that's number 8. Make decisions quick, cut off all other options. All right, a couple more. Number 9. All human beings have the right to an opinion, but not all opinions are right. This is so important to think about. I would actually argue that you should ignore most opinions and that most opinions are wrong. What I mean by wrong is not that the person can't have an opinion. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that people are just giving you their opinion. Doesn't mean it has to be your opinion, and it does not mean that it has to be your choice. If you're trying to choose on something, if you're trying to make a decision on the path to take a business, if you're trying to make a decision on where to go to school, if you're trying to make a decision on who to marry, and people are giving you their opinions, that's all they're giving you is their opinion. That's all that it is. And that's the only way that you should take it. And not all opinions are created equal. So since that is the case, you need to consider the source of the opinion. So if, for instance, you're thinking about starting a business and you're deciding between a lawn care business and, say, an investing business, and you go to your Aunt Sally and you're like, hey, Aunt Sally, I'm trying to decide between these two businesses. Which one do you think would be a great path? They're going to go, well, everyone, needs their grass cut, and that seems like a very safe route, and you'll always be able to have business because everyone's got grass, and everyone likes a nice lawn. And investing is very complicated. It's very risky, very complicated. There's a good chance that you'll fail, so on and so forth. And then you go, hey, Aunt Sally, how much have you invested in your life? Have you ever invested in anything? And she goes, no, I've never done that. It's very risky. You should take that into consideration. If Aunt Sally has never invested in anything and she's sitting here telling you that you should go start a lawn care business over an investing business because investing is risky, but she's never done it, you kind of go, okay, no, sorry, Aunt Sally, I don't really think I should listen to your opinion. Not that I don't like you as a person, but if you've never done it, you don't know, because investing has this capability and lawn care has this capability. So, you just got to be able to know who you're talking to. Not all opinions are created equal. Think things through before you go listening to what other people are saying. Or when you are going to ask people their opinion, think about who you're going to ask. When you want to do something, who has accomplished that? Who has done a lot of that in their life? Go to that person and ask them. Just because you're close to somebody, your parents, for instance, goodness sake, and this is, again, hard, challenging. Your parents, of course, they want what's best for you. That's what they'll say. But they want what's best for you through their lens of beliefs, their lens of abilities, their lens of what they've gone through in life. Not your beliefs, your abilities, and what you believe is possible. So when your parents tell you to move away from this path that you're trying to go down because they feel like it's risky, if they don't have any, they haven't done any of that in the past, if they have no experience with what you're trying to do, you shouldn't listen. You shouldn't listen. Not because you don't love your parents, but because they have no experience. It's another person that either has experience or doesn't. So find the people who have the experience in whatever it is you're trying to figure out. Go to that person, get their opinion. Outside of that, most other opinions should not be listened to or paid attention to. Tough one to do. Certainly hard. It feels icky. But because so many people pay attention to all of the opinions of the people around them, and I want everyone's opinion before I make a choice, or I want to make other people happy, so on and so forth. All of the things we've already talked about. Because of that, you make a choice to make somebody else happy, and you live with the consequences, not them. For a moment, they're happy, but the next decision that you make, they then have something to hang over your head. Then they know that they can control you. Boop. Is that what you want? If you want to live other people's lives, go for it. If you want to live your life, ignore opinions, make a choice. Okay, that's number 9. Another important one. Cool. That leads us to number 10, which will round all of this out. All human beings are selfish. Some are just more rationally selfish. Where do I start on this? When I say the word selfish, you get a icky feeling inside of you. You get a not a good feeling, right? Very questionable feeling. And a certain person pops into your head when I say selfish. A certain kind of person. Someone who makes decisions only for them. It's generally a rich person that seems to make decisions only for them. They get all the reward. They take all of it. It is all about them. That's the kind of person that pops into most people's heads when I say selfish. But all human beings are selfish. That rich person is just more rationally selfish than others, which is hard to believe. Now, again, there is a level of selfishness that you can take things to that is, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but it doesn't jive with society. That, hey, it's all about me and I'm going to do what I want to do, and I'm going to reap all the rewards and nobody else is going to. That person generally shouldn't, that doesn't jive with society. Doesn't jive with me. I don't believe in that kind of thing, but that's what we view as selfish. However, even the person that is making moralistic decisions, what most of society was deemed as virtuous decisions to help others, in spite of their own life, maybe, that person is selfish. That person is making a selfish choice. Mother Teresa is a great example of this. Mother Teresa helped many people, lots of people. It seemed like she was a martyr and she just sacrificed herself for everybody else. What a lot of people don't know is she got financial backing from very rich people to do that. She got financial backing to do it, number 1. Number 2, it's what she wanted to do. She chose to do it. She wanted to go help all those people. She wanted to go what seemed like sacrifice herself, but she chose to do it. It was something that made her happy and brought her fulfillment in her life. Gandhi is another example. Gandhi chose to actively sacrifice what seemed like sacrifice himself for his country, for his people, for India, so that they could be free from England. But he chose to do it. It was a selfish choice on his part to do the acts that he did, nonviolence, he would go through these long fasts where he would get close to, what would seem like he would get close to dying. He did those things under his own, like no one was forcing him to do any of that. He didn't do it because he thought it was a virtuous thing. He believed that it was the right thing to do. As a selfish human being who makes choices that they believe is going to bring the best, is going to achieve the thing that they want to achieve. So when it comes to, say, making virtuous decisions so that you can seem virtuous, or so that you can make others happy, or so that society views you in a good light, when you do that, even though you may not be happy about it, You go and you spend time, you give up your Sunday so that you can go spend time, I don't know, I'm not saying that helping the homeless is no fun, but maybe you don't want to do that on Sunday. Maybe you'd rather watch football and you're like, I don't really want to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and go do it because it's going to make my wife happy, and it's going to make, the church happy, and so on and so forth. It's going to make all these people happy. So I'm going to go ahead and do it. That's you're still being selfish. You think that your life will be easier by making the decision to go do it, to go donate your time, than not. Because if you don't go, then your wife won't be happy with you. People will judge you. You'll be looked at differently. So it is a selfish act. The question is, are you being rationally selfish? And by rationally selfish, strategically selfish maybe is a good way to put it. By being strategically selfish, you can understand that you cannot fully be selfless until you are selfish. Most people think that it is strictly about sacrificing your life and your happiness and your money and your time for the sake of others, for the sake of doing it, and that's what brings a virtuous life. But the people who actually do that are very unhappy, not fulfilled, don't actually have any appreciation for what they're doing. But when you fulfill your cup, when you fill your cup, when you fulfill your happiness, and then figure out how to spin that into helping others, then you can actually help more people. If you look at an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs are selfish people. I think most people would look at that and go, yeah, no, I totally agree with that. But entrepreneurs help more people than the assholes that want to say, hey, you need to be virtuous and go and sacrifice yourself for all these other people. Anything that you have in your hand, the phone you have in your hand, the camera that I'm looking at, the computer screen in front of me, this microphone, everything we have in our life is because of an entrepreneur. They have solved all of these problems for you and millions of people. Yeah, of course, they've gotten paid for it. Yeah, that's what life, you get. I made something, I get reimbursed for it. That's what happens. Entrepreneurs are selfish people that build things that help other people, but they help more people than most anybody else. So by fulfilling their own life, fulfilling their own cup, by making themselves happy, they then help massive amounts of people. Huge amounts of people by doing that. And if you can parse that, put that in the back of your head, think about it, ruminate on it, pay attention. Pay attention to what other people say around you. Pay attention to how someone says something, this is the way your life should be, and you should live this virtuous life, and you need to just give yourself to everybody else. And money's bad. Money's bad. You shouldn't have money. No, that leads you to being selfish. No, that's not. You shouldn't do that. Well, no. You want where all the charities in the world, how do you think they're sustained? By the people who donate most of the money. And the people who donate most of the money are the people with the money. So you cannot be selfless until you are selfish. And then how do you take that selfishness and bring it to the world so that the world can be better, so that you can help people, so that you can actually extend your reach? And that's the most effective way to do it. When you take responsibility for your life, you can then give life to those around you. Before that happens, it's always going to be an uphill battle. Okay, those are our 10 lessons from 40 years on this earth. Like I said, I know a lot of them were uh, contrary to what a lot of society would tell us. But if you just look at the way many people live their lives, you can see potentially how these are more realistic than what society tells us is the case. So take time to review them, take time to think, plug them in the back of your head, let them ruminate. That's my biggest challenge, is if you heard anything today that you're like, nope, that's not the way that it is. My challenge to you is not to just drop it and believe it, to let it simmer. To look at the world around you and go, I wonder if the people saying things like this, how their life is. How is their life actually? How do they feel about things? And you may come up with a different answer. Who knows? But I hope that helped you for today. I appreciate you guys spending this birthday with me. It means more to me than you know. Without you guys here, of course, this would be nothing. It would not be my will to move forward. As I'm sitting here talking about being selfish, this is something that I love to do. This is something that I care about so much, but my will to move forward is because of you. If I didn't do this, if I didn't love it, if I didn't enjoy it, then I would not be following through. But my drive is because of you. So I appreciate you spending this birthday with me. I appreciate you spending any amount of time that you spend listening or watching this. Thank you guys so much. And until next time, here's to your 1% growth every single day.